Hey, folks, this is Rabble Rousing Rich Bergeron.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's the tornado himself, Tony Pennycow.
And psychic contact is crystal unveiled.
Yeah.
How
Well,
you guys been? It's been a long time.
well, yeah, it's been like a couple weeks. A little bit more than that. But,
What you figure is that 2 weeks ago I had the Rocky thing, and then last week the fight.
oh, we lost you.
Keeping my ass busy.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, I still haven't got your review up, but we'll get to that. No, they got a couple days.
Was that my Rocky 4 redo review?
Yeah. But yeah, it sounded like not much has changed, but you liked some of it, you didn't like some other stuff.
Actually, a lot changed. And one of the things, I wanted to go on that. And like I said, I have a lot of things to go. Tell me what topics you want me to hit. But that one, you tell me when we want to go to it. There were some parts I loved, and parts I did not love. Parts I actually hated. And so I said, now what they got to do is they got to combine the regular cut and the director's cut of Rocky 4 Part 3, the tornado cut. And we'll combine the best of both.
Right. And you also did your Rocky run in your outfit and your belt there, which was in a feat of its own.
One of the things, and I said when I did a write-up on it, going into it, I was concerned, and I'm not concerned about my time. Because he looked at me and he goes, "You're not going to run in that, are you?" I said, "Of course I am." I said, "That's all for the show." I said, "I don't care for the whole time." I said, to quote Rocky, he says, "As long as I see that finish line and I'm still standing, I'm like, no, I'm stuck in the neighborhood." To me, it was like that competitive nature was like, no, I got to put up a good time. And even when I was in Lock Haven, I was never much of a runner. Even when I was 107, I wasn't much of a runner. I never was. We went running on our team. I was always one of the last guys. I never was a runner. So 2 years ago, I did it 13. So I was like 11-minute, 10-second miles. And I'm like, you know what? Part of my competitive nature is going to kick in, and I'm going to want to put up a good time. So going into this, I started training like a certain way with the ankle weights and all that. And then my infinite wisdom kicks in. I said, you know what? I'm going to start.
Cutting out on us there, Tony. Can you hear me now? Hello.
We lost Tony.
I guess so. I'm gonna remove him from the call for a second. Going back. It says Rich Bergeron kicked Tony back out of the call. Booted him.
Hello?
Hello, we're looking for Alfred Bundy
Did we get cut off?
from with the auto warranty department. Yeah, you were trailing off, and then I was like trying to get you to answer, and there was nothing. So I don't know. You were talking about the Rocky run.
Hello?
Hello, can you hear me?
I can't hear anything.
Oh shit! What do we do? Tony Pennycow left. Uh-oh. Tony. He's in the Twilight Zone. Hello?
Better? Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you
Hello?
hear me?
Okay. When did we lose?
Uh,
I know I was talking about doing the run and going to Plan B.
yeah. Last thing I think we heard was, you were never a good runner. You were,
I said I was never a good runner at 100, even 175 pounds.
yeah,
I
that's
planned
where
to
you trailed
train
off.
in this tire, and my treadmill broke at home. And I was like, well, I don't want to run around the neighborhood wearing a muscle suit and a cape and a fedora. And
Why
I said, I
not?
don't want to go to LA Fitness. I can't, and I don't want to go to LA Fitness. So I said, part of it's because I don't want to look like an idiot, but that never bothers me. But I said, part of it's because I got this grand unveiling on November 5th.
Right.
We want to bust out. And so I was like, I can't train in this tire. I said, I'll be fine. About a mile into the run, I realized I wasn't fine because the outfit was heavy, but it was cumbersome around my chest, and I couldn't get that full deep breath in.
Yeah.
And I was fatiguing faster than I fell into it. Like my
So,
body felt
do
like
you
I'm
feel
done.
like Deontay Wilder is like your new best friend now because of this?
Exactly. I was like, I understand what he was talking about. Because I was like, oh my God, I said, I'm actually fatiguing faster than I thought I would. So about a mile into it, I'm like, what? I said, well, I'm going to take this like a fight. I had plan A. Plan A is maybe not working. Another thing that I think may have hurt was, so when I did this a couple years ago, I'm a competitive guy. And I was telling my dad, I don't care if I put up a bad time. I don't care how bad I do. As long as I see that fit still standing, I can say I'm not just another bump from the neighborhood. That's a Rocky quote. and my dad looked at me and I'm like, my competitive nature is going to want to put up a good time. I'm not going to want to embarrass myself. Because 2 years ago I did it in 34 and change. I think it was like 34:30 or something. It was in a 10-second mile. And when I signed up the first time, I put myself in about a 12-minute mile pace because I didn't know. They put me in, category D, which is like the slower people, which I was more than fine with. So when I signed up this time, I still stayed. I kept everything the same. They put me in category C, which was a little bit faster, more athletic people, and I was trying to keep up with them. So it was also fatiguing me faster. So I come up to plan B about a mile into it. I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I mean, I am really, really hurting here. I said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to back off the pace, and I'm going to go to like a fast power walk until I can catch my breath. So I never stopped. So I slowed down, walked fast, sucked up some air, and then I said, instead of trying to keep that like 11-mile pace, I'm going to run as hard as I can for as long as I can at like a 9-minute mile. And even if it's only 3 or 4 minutes, and then once I start sucking air again, I'm going to back it down to the power walk, which I walk at about a power walk at about a 13 to 14 mile. And that's what I did. And like I said, I saw that finish line, and I was like, you get that wave of adrenaline, and I cooked about the last few hundred yards. And then when I was done, I was like, yeah, I'm done. Not just another bump from the neighborhood. I did it in the outfit. I goal. I got my medal and all that, and people were taking pictures with me, and I felt good. But then that little voice was kicking in my head. You didn't do good. I was like, no, you did okay. And that competitive drive said, no, you couldn't run the whole thing. You had to stop and walk. And it was bothering me. I bet I put up a bad time, and it really bothered me until I got my time. And I was only 1 minute off. 1 minute, 18 seconds off of what I was 2 years ago. And that made me feel a little bit better. So instead of a 11-minute, 10-second mile, I was like 1 minute and 30-second mile.
Awesome.
Not great, but I didn't embarrass myself. Figure, come on, you guys seen the photos. Did I look okay?
Yeah, you were pretty chiseled.
Yeah, it's pretty chiseled. People are like, dude, that is awesome. And I'm like, you ran in that? I'm like, yeah. And He's like, I have no words. He's like, I've known you for 38 years. I have no words. That's kind of...
Nice. Well, we got a lot of fight talk to catch up on.
Did I see the photo before?
Yes.
How did I look?
Good.
Not too shabby.
Love that look.
So anyway,
But
we're going to go back a couple weeks here with some of the fights. We get last week's fight to talk about with the UFC, and then the week before here, the big one was Max Holloway versus Yair Rodriguez. And I didn't win the big bucks, but Max helped me win a little bit. I did not pick well on some of these fights. Ben Rothwell was my big one. I blew it. I thought he was going to take care of business, and Rogerio de Lima came in there like he had to take a shit. He got right the hell out in 32 seconds. And the main event, I mean, you could not ask for more than that in the main event. Yair Rodriguez coming off 2 years of rest and just was dynamic, but just not dominant enough to hang with Max Holloway. And fifth round in particular was pretty vicious. Yair landed this just beautiful short left elbow that Max was talking about after the fight, and just some real dynamic stuff. A little spinning back fist. I think he broke his foot as well. I mean, the guy threw everything in the kitchen sink at Max Holloway. Just could not really put him in danger. And Max, I think the difference with Max is just his timing, his accuracy, and his foot movement, footwork. Just has incredible footwork, always has his feet in the right place when he throws a punch. Very few arm punches come out of him. Sometimes he does it just for effect, to finish up the combo. But you notice when you watch that fight again a couple times, Yair Rodriguez is almost all arm punches. Because, if he learned to put his feet in the right position and turn and pivot the right way to put power behind his punches, he would be really dangerous. But he was just throwing these haymakers that were just completely arm punches. And Max does this little thing where he just does slight movements and leans back a little bit. He moves his head slightly. And most of the punches that hit him are glancing blows because of that. And the ones that did really land hard from Yair Rodriguez, I did not see Max get wobbled one time. He got cut up a little bit, he got bruised, but he did not seem to really get wobbled the entire fight. And Yair Rodriguez had a few of those moments where you wondered, how much of this is this guy going to take.
Rodriguez, I'm sure, will make some adjustments.
Yeah.
Guy,
not bad for 2 years off, though.
I had him winning the... that's why I was so excited to email you on that. But Max just put it in overdrive, and he got the job done.
Yeah. And, he really did prove he has the better boxing. Just look at Yair's face after the fight. It cuts under both eyes, looked like, and, two big black eyes. And just mostly the jab for Holloway, I think, did a lot of the facial damage. But it's the other thing is he just goes to these he does counters and combinations rather than counter punching one punch at a time, and he'll take one punch and land three. But just the hand speed, the accuracy, I think it was just tremendous. And I look forward to seeing what he does next. But Yair is definitely back in contention, and got a lot of good credit for how tough he was for Max himself. So. Power to him.
What a stacked division.
Yeah. And we had a female fight, Felicia Spencer beating Leah Letson by TKO. That was in the third round from elbows and punches. And that was expected. That wasn't a big upset or anything. Kaylin Williams over Miguel Beza. That was a TKO from punches. Three rounds in 1 minute. It's 2 seconds into that round. And Yadong Song over Julio Arce by head kick and punches. That was 2 rounds in, 1 minute 35 seconds into the second. And this one I picked correctly on every card. Joel Alvarez. I did not think he was going to be a TKO though. I had it written down as probably a submission because I looked at Alvarez's record and he had like 16 submissions. So he ended up knocking out Thiago Moises, who was a big favorite. Very expensive. But Joel Alvarez was nice and cheap. I think it was like $11 on the lineup card. So he helped me win with one card. I had Max Holloway in the MVP slot. And I think I had one person losing. Anyway, Andrea Lee also got sort of a little bit of an upset over Cynthia Calvillo. She was very cheap. It was a TKO from corner stoppage at the end of the second round. And then Sean Woodson over Colin Anglin. I knew that was kind of be a toss up. So I had one guy on one card, another guy on the other card. Courtney Casey. That was up by the way. That was a first round TKO with just 30 seconds left in that round. From punches to the body. Courtney Casey in the third fight of the night, beating Liana Jojoa. That was a unanimous decision. Rafael Alves over Mark Diakiese by guillotine choke submission. First round there, 1 minute 48 seconds in, and then the first fight of the night also produced a knockout. Da-Un Young over Kennedy Nchukwu. This is the second time Nchukwu fucked me over because I picked him across the board. I did not think this Da-Un Young had a chance, so that was another one that I wish I could take back, but right off the bat, started with a knockout. You had to get all the knockouts to win the big bucks, but FanDuel just gave me another $250 today, so hopefully do some damage with that for that class action lawsuit deal. I wasn't even expecting it. I totally forgot there was another installment coming, and I won like $86 over the weekend. Just, not even like getting in the top 10 or the top 50, but just winning on almost every lineup I put in for all the football games. And it was like from Thursday to Sunday, I was killing it. And then Monday night, last night, I put in 10 lineups and only won on 2 of them. I thought I was going to get the home run. But I'm still figuring it out. I'm getting better, but I'm still figuring out some things. I could not predict in that game that both of the, you had to have both of the kickers. That rarely happens. But it turned out to be the Giants kicker was the only one worth having, because the only player that scored a touchdown for the Giants was a fucking lineman who you couldn't have picked. He wasn't even on the list for being a receiver. I mean, that's how bad the Giants are. But yeah, you had to have both Ryan Suckup and Graham Gano, or you weren't going to win the money. And then when you did win the money, it was like everybody won like $800 instead of like $3,000 or $4,000, which was what usually happens. So I wasn't too upset, but now I got a chance to win some more, and we got a big one coming up on December 4th. Rob Font versus Jose Aldo in the main event there. But we also had Misha Tate getting a loss over Caitlin Vieira in a card that was pretty disappointing for me. Not only did I, pick a couple fights wrong, but every fight went the distance except one. And you had to have that girl in your main event slot to get any chance of winning. So, whereas the week before it was like everybody got knocked out or stopped. This week it was like every fight was full distance. So that was kind of crazy. But anyway, we'll get to that in a minute. I'm just going to go through this upcoming fight here. Rob Font and Jose Aldo, that's out in Vegas. Rob is 19-4, Jose is 30-7. We had Brad Liddell in the co-main event, he's 10-1, fighting Rafael Fiziev, who is also 10-1. I've seen both of those guys fight. That is going to be a fight stealer, I think. But Jose and Rob, I don't know. I guess Jose, with the experience, I would say has the edge there. Rob Font's kind of up and comer, but just doesn't have near as much experience against really big names. But Jose is still kind of trying to figure himself out in his newfound weight there. So we'll see. That could be an interesting one. But I really like Jose's chances in that one. He looks very dynamic lately. So Brad Riddell and Rafael Fiziev. I like Fiziev on that one, but Riddell is just very durable. Fiziev at the same time, I mean, thought he was going to be knocked out in his last fight. He came back and just roared forward and found a way to win. And then we got Clay the Carpenter Guida back in action. He is 36-21. Still fighting. Unreal. Fighting Leonardo Santos, who's 18-4-1. And 12th fight of the night, Jimmy Crute. He is 12-2, fighting Jamal Hill, who is 8-1. We got Brendan Allen, 17-4, fighting Roman DeLeeds, who is 9-1. Matt the Immortal Brown, 23-18 in the middle of the card in the 10th fight here, fighting Brian Barberena, who is 15-8. That ought to be an interesting one. Maki Pitolo, 13-8, fighting Dusko Todorovic, who is 10-2. Manel Kape, who is 16-6, fighting Zalgas Zumagulov, who is 14-5. This one's going to be a tough one to pick lineups for. There's a lot of 15 fights. Jake Matthews, 17-5, fighting Jeremiah Wells, who's 9-2-1. And we got Cheyenne Buys. She doesn't sell. She's 6-2, fighting Mallory Martin, who is 7-4. Fifth fight of the night, Alonzo Menafield. Clicked on an article by accident. Alonzo Menafield fighting somebody. I'll figure it out in a minute. Fighting William Knight. Menafield 11-2. Knight is 10-2. And Claudio Puelas in a female fight, 10-2, fighting. No, Claudio. Sorry, not Claudia. Claudio Puelas. He's male. 10-2, fighting Chris Grutzemacher, who is 15-4. And Grutz got a big upset in his last fight. I'm pretty sure he's not going to be the cheapest fighter on the card this time. Philippe Leans in the third fight of the night. He is 14-5, fighting Azamat Mirzakhanov, who is undefeated at 10-0. And Alex Morono, 20-7, fighting Mickey Gall, 7-3. And first fight of the night, Louis Smolka, who is 17-7, fighting Vince Morales, who is 10-5. Alright, so that's all for that one. Let's search for Misha. And of course, as a former guest of ours, I had to pick Misha in all my lineups. Kind of doomed me because Kitlin Vieira got the job done against her, and Misha actually competed really well. I actually had her in the main event slot in my only winning lineup. Even as a loser, she scored enough points to get me into the winnings, which says a lot. I mean, there's most of the points are scored by significant strikes, so tells you what kind of a fight it was. But Ketlin, she's just a different breed. She's a very defensive fighter, which is tough to do and be dominant in the UFC, where they're always, we got to put on a show. She's like very plodding, uses the cage, fights off the back of the cage, leaning against the cage very well. And she just does these little things and leans away from punches perfectly and counters so well. She blew up Misha's eye pretty good, and just made it tough, made it difficult every single round. And she ended up getting a unanimous decision. I've never seen close to really rocking Misha, but I hit her with like a couple punches in a row a few times, and Misha just looked frustrated more than anything. She just could not get in a position where she could do any damage. She definitely was landing shots, just nothing that really shook Vieira and made her really react much or make any mistakes that would lead to the beginning of the end. And Misha couldn't use her wrestling at all either. Vieira was very good with the takedown defense and just kept it standing. So look forward to seeing if she develops a little bit more of an offense to finish out her career. But right now, she doesn't have to. She does just enough to impress the judges and doesn't have to put herself at risk. She's a very tall fighter too, so that helps. But yeah, it's going to be very, very good to see how she develops. And she actually, after beating the shit out of Misha Tate, she says to the announcer she wants to stay in Vegas and train with her. And then one of the commentators says, well, I don't know with that eye if Misha's going to be training with anybody anytime soon. Well, a tough one to watch. Sean Brady in the co-main event over Michael Chiesa. That was expected, sort of, but Brady had a tougher time than maybe a lot of people thought he would. Chiesa was close a couple times to locking in some chokes and looked like he was competing early, but just kind of got sucked into Brady's game and lost by unanimous decision. And then the big win, the only win by anything other than a decision, came from Taila Santos. I did have her on one card, an MVP slot. But she beat one of my favorite fighters. I knew she was going to lose. I just didn't think she was going to lose that badly. It was a rear naked choke submission, 4 minutes and 49 seconds into round one. And it's her first win under her new name. Her old name was Joanne Calderwood. Her new name is Joanne Wood. Because she married John Wood, who is her coach out there in Vegas. And crazy. When I was out in Vegas, I actually, I think I spoke to John Wood a couple times about some stories I was working on about some fighters. But anyway, Joanne Wood did not do so well. She was just not the type of fighter Taila Santos that Wood seemed qualified to face. She seemed much smaller. She just couldn't get anything to work. Landed a couple good leg kicks, and that was about it. And she just got overwhelmed with punches and technique. Just unbelievable talent there from Taila Santos, and got back to her stoppages with a rear naked choke there. And you had a sense that Joanne was just like, go ahead, put it on me. I just want out of this one. This is not going my way. Sometimes girls get caught, this time it was just like, all right, just make it end. Sorry, but that sometimes happens. Anyway, Ronnie Yaya before that, and that was a toss-up, I knew, over Kyung Ho Kang. That was a unanimous decision win for Ronnie. Adrian Yanez over Davey Grant. I did know that was going to happen. Thought that was going to be a knockout, but that was a split decision. And it took a lot for Adrian to catch up in that one. But he did. Now, Pat Sabatini over Tucker Lutz. Tucker Lutz had not lost in 6 years, so I had him as one of my underdogs, but he ended up losing by unanimous decision. But in some of these, if you had the loser, it wasn't so bad because there was just none of the losers that were expected to lose won by knockout, which would have been the swing vote or whatever. So it was a tough lineup situation because there's so many decisions. But Tucker absolutely got destroyed. So if you had him as a loser, I think he scored like 16 points. It was bad. He just got totally overwhelmed. Then Rafa Garcia over Nathan Levy by unanimous decision. That was a little bit of a war. Nathan Levy wanted it pretty bad, but Rafa just had a little bit more well-rounded skills, a little bit of better wrestling. Lupita Godinez over Konlak Sufisara by unanimous decision. Probably butchered that one. Cody Durden over Kaleng Aori by unanimous decision. And I'm not even going to try to pronounce that guy's first name. Shyalon over Sean Sariano. I did get that one right. Juana Pinero over Sam Hughes in the first fight. That was all unanimous decisions, unfortunately. And another former guest of ours is in the main event this Friday at Mohegan Sun, or December 3rd. What is December 3rd? Is that next week? December 3rd? Or is that this weekend?
Yeah, December 3rd is next Friday.
Oh, so this is for next Friday.
Black Friday.
Next Friday. Alright. So Sergio Pettis is 21-5. Kyoji Horiguchi is 29-3 in the main event. Emmanuel Sanchez in the co-main event, 20-6, fighting Jeremy Kennedy, who is 16-3. We got Kyle Crutchmer, 7-1, fighting Oliver Enkamp, who is 10-2. And J.J. Wilson, undefeated at 8-0, fighting Alfie Davis, who's 14-4. Josh Hill, 20-4, fighting Jared Scoggins, who's 10-1. We already got our Jesus fight of the week, and we're not even in boxing yet. Vinicius De Jesus. He is 9-4, fighting Levon Chokali, who is 9-1. Not gonna go through all the rest of them. But I don't know if he's related to Mark Hamill of Star Wars fame, but Mike Hamill is on the card at 8-5, fighting Killis Moda, who is 12-2. There's also another DeJesus on the card too. John DeJesus. He's 14-9. Fighting Kai Kamaka on the third. 8-4. Alright. So, boxing. I did watch some boxing this weekend. Do you believe it? I watched the entire Crawford Porter fight.
It was well, I'm sorry.
You're sorry?
I'm sorry I didn't get to see it live.
Oh. Thought you said sorry. I had to watch that. Wasn't that bad? Porter.
No.
Porter started out so strong, looked so good, but just sort of got very frustrated towards the end, and you could up and down argue whether his father stopped it too soon or not. But you think about it, there's 2 rounds left, and Crawford is a notorious late starter. And he was just starting to land his best punches and figure out what Porter was going to do next before he was going to do it. And just looked brilliant towards the end of the fight. Unfortunately, the beginning of the fight, he looked like ass. And he just not put together. I mean, the only thing that saved him was his defense and his chin. And like I was saying about the earlier fights with the arm punches, I mean, Porter, as much as I love his durability and his anxiousness and his get right there in the fight spirit, he just gets ahead of himself. He gets one punch right after the other before he thinks about where it's going. He looks down a lot, he gets into these headbutt scenarios, and he just gets sloppy almost every single fight, and you can have all the output in the world, but if you're not targeting anything and it's all arm punches and you're slapping punches, the guy is just going to walk through all that stuff, figure out when you're leaving yourself open, and put an end to that crap. And that's what happened. You You'd love to have Porter win that fight. He's a great character,
years ago.
but it's just lately he just doesn't have the
You know, when we interviewed
power.
Sean, he fought right after that. So it's like, you know, we talked. This had to be probably 2009, 2010, 2011 at the latest. So I don't even think Tom was even doing the show with us back then. But you know, we interviewed this guy, and you know, he was an up and coming prospect. And a few weeks later, he was fighting on, you know, I think it was like ESPN Friday Night Fights or something like that. So, you know, I was saying to my dad, I'm like, hey, Dad, we got to watch him a couple weeks ago. And I said, you know, he's undefeated, and I said, you know, we got a pretty good prospect here. So we tuned into the fight, and he didn't look great that night. You know, he won, but he didn't look good. And this is what, you know, I come to find out watching Sean Porter's career, and it was a very good career. It was a championship career. It was a career where, you know, he has nothing to be ashamed of. I think his biggest drawback was, you know, he was very strong, very physical, you know, where he could overpower somebody, like when he fought Paulie Malignaggi, and he just, you know, he ran roughshod over him, knocked him out in, I think it was like 4 rounds. You know, those fights he looked great, but in other fights, he had what I would call like a Shane Mosley syndrome, and I love Shane Mosley. Shane Mosley was one of my favorite fighters. But what Shane Mosley would do if he was fighting somebody that was either taller than him or had longer arms or a very tight defense or a little bit quicker, Shane would get very jumpy and he would roll his hands a lot, but he wouldn't throw punches. So if you go back, watch Shane Mosley's fights, watch his second fight with Vernon Forrest, watch his first fight with Winky Wright, watch his fight with Floyd Mayweather, watch his fight with Manny Pacquiao, and it was the same pattern every one of those fights. He was very jumpy, and he was almost herky-jerky. Even the second fight with De La Hoya, the same thing. Very herky-jerky, but he wasn't throwing a lot of punches, and he was almost like wasting energy. I would see a lot of Sean Porter doing that, where he would get very awkward and jumpy, and he wouldn't set his feet, and he would look very, very sloppy in there. And so Sean was like a Jekyll and Hyde kind of guy in that ring. He either looked really good or he'd look really amateurish. So, like I said, I didn't get to see this fight live because, once again, I get these idiot ideas sometimes, and this is one of the ones that backfired on me. I was up early last Saturday working, and, you know, I came home and I was like, you know, I'm a little tired. I said, but I want to watch this fight. I said, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take a power nap around 8 o'clock, and I'm going to wake up at 9. I don't need to set an alarm. I'll wake up at 9, then, and then I can order this fight. Yeah, then I woke up to a text message saying, holy shit, did you see that fight?
Nice.
God damn it. But, so from what I read and from the highlights that I saw, Terrence Crawford, we know that. Sean Porter came out quick and pressed the action, was in his face, landed some shots. Porter, you know, in the cards going into the 10th round, but Crawford's like a guy almost like an Andre type of Ward, where he gives you a round or two to out, and once he does, he becomes like almost like a professor in there, and he just uses you against you and counters it. And that's kind of what Crawford was doing here. And then finally in the 10th round, you know, he finally then started landing the shots that he needed, and once, you know, he smelled blood, it was like, you know, Jaws was like coming up on the boat to get Quint. You couldn't escape it. It was inevitable. And
yeah,
you know,
at first I thought,
back to the salvage now.
at first when he was laughing off all those, you know, the attacks by Porter, and he was kind of like making the friggin' hand gestures like, oh, that didn't hurt, you know, I thought that was just really, you know, kind of immature, and it wasn't really going to help him. But it might have actually been the difference in the fight, because, you know, Porter, that was really what I think frustrated Porter the most, was that, you know, no matter what he threw at him, it wasn't hurting him. So in that respect, it actually worked in a fighter's favor. Usually, you know, I don't like to see that. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't really help a guy, but, you know, sometimes it can be a psychological edge. Anyway, that's just my 2 cents
Well,
on
you
that.
know what?
What you guys think of his dad at the end of the fight when it was over? His dad saying, Sean didn't do what I wanted him to do in training. What do you guys think of that?
I didn't hear that.
I don't like that personally. Did hear it afterwards, and I know there was a lot of criticism. On Porter's father for that, because you know what, it's a twofold thing, Tom. It's almost like you're doing like the Deontay Wilder technique, where you're saying like, oh, well, we didn't do well because of this. It's like you're almost like looking for like an excuse, a way out. But then you're also throwing your son under the bus as well. You know,
Right.
You know, I mean, sorry, I personally don't think so. You know, you could have came out there and said, hey, we had a plan, and Terrence Crawford's a great fighter. You know, he did whatever. You know, you didn't have to come out there with the sour grapes and throwing your son under the bus as well. I mean, I felt
right, exactly. Because when you're at fighting, I know you mean to tell me that he took shortcuts in training?
Right.
You know, Teddy Atlas always would caution us about that father-son combination.
Yep.
If the father is a trainer, I'm not saying it can't work, but there's a lot of second guessing
Well,
about
we had
this.
another
And,
former
maybe
guest
Sean,
of ours
Sean got the best out of his career,
from
but
Montreal.
you got to wonder about this.
Another former guest of ours from Montreal,
who?
Tony Luis. Remember him? His father stopped the fight, threw in the towel on him once, and I think he's still trying to forgive him.
Well, it's like Teddy summed it up. He said, "What is a father's job? To protect his son.
Yeah.
That's a father's main job. You want to provide and you want to keep your son out of danger. Now, the problem is that when you're in the corner, you got to send your fighter into danger sometimes.
Right.
And it's just, to me, it just ruined it. I mean, it was like an off key. It's like, well, here, really, I took the credit for it if Sean would have won, did what I told him to do. That was just not, I mean, to me, it was just awful. Just something unfortunate.
The one that, like, and I was actually talking to one guy out of Philadelphia I know. We were, talking, about this, and we were talking about Porter and, his father's comments and, how we didn't really think it was appropriate. And Tom, just like you said a minute ago, as you're used to, trying to protect and, provide. And you're right, sometimes you have to send, the son out into danger because this is, a dangerous sport. And then you go the exact opposite. So sometimes, a father might stop a fight too fast. He's worried about his son. The father might, let it go on too long because, it's my son. He come back. You have to find that perfect balance in there. A lot don't. Some rare cases do. The one that I just saw probably on the show at least 5 or 6 times a year over the last 13 years is the Jimmy Garcia-Gabriel Reynolds fight. And that's where Garcia's brother was his trainer and cornerman. And Garcia was well overmatched. He wasn't a deserving challenger. He was basically a punch at the opening bell. And every round he was going back to his corner and they were smacking him. And they were saying, fight harder, fight harder. And it's like, I can't fight it. My ass kicked in here. And they're smacking him and they're sending it out there, fight harder. And each round he was taking a beating. And finally the referee stopped. And then Garcia slipped into a coma and he died a couple of days later. Now, as a father and a brother, how do how does that live on your rest of your life? You were given, firstly, you were giving the guy no instruction, fight harder. I can tell that. Yeah, I can say, hey, you fight harder. No, hey, he's leaving his left hand low. Feint your jab, let him throw whatever and counter over the top. That's instruction. Let him come to you, set your feet, fire a right hand, and pivot out. That's instruction. Fight harder is no instruction.
Breathe. That's no instruction. I mean, yeah, you always say take a deep breath, but then don't just keep saying it for a whole minute. Yeah, I know how to breathe.
well, you're better than this guy. Oh, yeah? Really? What's happening in the ring is fooling me.
Mhm.
You know, Tom,
You got to get up first.
yeah. We didn't get to talk the other week. I did the pre-recording on Wednesday night because I was going to the Rocky movie. But I wanted to talk to you about the air before we jump onto something else. A couple weeks ago, I had the opportunity to go up to Lock Haven, my alma mater, and visit boxing practice. There, you know, we had a room. It was like a converted wrestling room. It had wrestling mats on the floor and, you know, bags. We didn't have a ring in there. You know, we'd spar. We'd pull the bags against the wall, and we'd just kind of, you know, each pick a corner, and we'd spar. So now the former president, who was a really big-time boxing fan, on his way out, he had gifted the team, you know, a new practice facility, which is really nice. And visited for the first time, and they have a ring in there, and they had some bags in there, and it was pretty good. So I go in there, and I'm watching the guys. You know, Coach Cooper asked me and told about my 5 weight classes, and, you know, he told some stories like how I was one of the tougher guys in the team, and, you know, I never quit, and this and that. You know, trying to, because you look at me, I'm stocky. You know, I'm stockier than I was 20 years ago. You can tell I'm, you know, a strong dude. But as a fighter, you know about me until you see it. So you would say, hey, this guy, you know, he might look tough, but, you know, he really was. And he was, you know, cool out, but he was hell inside the ring. And so I said to these guys, I watched them, and I said, well, I'm just going to observe you guys, and I'll chime in with little things here and there, but I'm going to take away from your practice. I just want to watch and give some pointers. And then at the end, I do want to tell you something. And I said, this is how life can change in one instance. And I said, my life almost changed. And I got into the ring, and I said, this corner here, it was the white corner. I said, this corner here is where my life almost changed. And I said, well, not this exact corner. And then Cooper goes, actually, Tony, the same ring that used to be at Rockview State Penitentiary. I said, let me change that. This exact corner, the exact corner of the exact ring I'm standing in, 27 years ago, my life almost changed. And I told how I went to the prison, and we were scared. I was a baby-faced 18-year-old freshman. Brought us to the prison to spar. And these guys looked nasty, hardened, unfriendly, had a scowl that would make Mike Tyson run away. And, oh my God, what did I do to get in here? And that first round, this guy, he jumped on me like a hyena attacking a baby lamb. And good. And then the second round, he had me in that neutral corner, and I'm looking over to my left, and I'm looking at Dr. Cox saying, oh, please stop this fight. Stop this fight. And Dr. Cox was watching me and saying, basically I want to see what this kid does. And I'm thinking, oh, God, get me out of here. It felt like he had 6 blows. Every one of them was hitting me upside the head. And I started to slump down, and my ass landed on that second rope. And I was about to go down, and I said, no, you old never quit. Here's one chance you got. And in that Rocky IV moment, I threw the big left hook. And in Rocky IV, I cut him. I hurt him. You see, Sheeney's a man. Except I landed on his shoulder. And I didn't cut him. And I didn't hurt him. But I got his respect. And I told those kids right there in that ring, I said, if I didn't do that left hook, I don't think I'd be here right now. I don't know where I'd be right now. But I wouldn't be right here. And I said, I don't know where my life would have gone. But every time when you think you have nothing left and you're scared, it's okay to be afraid. And it's okay, to get knocked down. But you got to get back up. And I told them that. And you could see these kids, they were looking at me like, and I told them, right now, when I went to Lock Haven, I said, we learned about the national champions from the decade previous and, guys that were all Americans, and you looked up to them. And I said, now they are my people. And I see them at the events, and we talk the old war stories. And I said, one day, you guys will be my peer. So right now, I want you to look up to me, and I want stories, and I want you to learn what I went through, that I was scared. And there's nothing wrong with being afraid. And hopefully one day, you have a career here. Whether you're a champion or not, it doesn't matter, because you will be a peer. You will be in a Lock Haven boxing alum. I think that story resonated.
Yeah, they're very powerful. And just keep telling them this is what you signed up for. Remember that.
Yeah. Like every year, I got to know Dr. Cox very well, and every year, we would have 30, 40 guys come out for the team, and so he would say, I'm looking at my 10 returning guys, and I'm looking at about 25 new faces, and one of you 25 new faces is pretty damn good, and I don't know who it is yet. And the funny thing is, he goes, you don't even know it could be you. And then you have the one that you say, why do you want to come out for the team? Why do you want to box? And he turned to me. I was 18 years old. Tony, why do you want to box? I said, well, Dr. Cox, I love the sport. I used to watch it with my dad growing up. And I'm out of Philadelphia. It's, very big into boxing. And I watch a lot of fights. I've gone to a lot of fights. I love the sport. I want to try it, whatever. Okay. And then there were some days, if he thought I was being a little bit too cocky, he'd have a veteran go in there and kind of smack me around in sparring a little bit to humble me. And then later I became the humbler instead of the humbled. And he had another kid in there one time. Why do you want to come out? I like to talk trash. And you know what? People always want to get up in my face. Well, I want to bust them in the mouth. Not in this gym, kid. Not in this gym. Okay. First sparring session, he put him in there. Kid was about 140 pounds. Put him in there with a kid that was just, a tough coal mining area kid. Wasn't a good fighter, but he was just tough. He was in your face. Wouldn't back down. Made the loudmouth quit. And you see the loudmouth around campus. So you walk with that strut. Kid, don't strut. You're a quitter.
Yeah. Some of the tough guys are the worst quitters. The so-called tough guys.
And you're right. You're right. It's like they said, in Rocky V, what they say, it was Tommy Morrison's line. He goes, what they always tell me, he goes, a bully's like a balloon, one good pop and it'll go away.
Yep. Anyway, great story. Great stuff. I got to get in touch with my school and figure out how to get back up there for a training session because my school is about to go to the extreme and they want to have a competitive MMA team, which has never been done. And they want to start the whole thing. So, but they also want to get the boxing back, which I don't think they've really had since I was there. So, I'd love to go and meet the new president and see what he's doing up there. But I hear nothing but good things. The New England Patriots are actually going to have our color guard there this next game. So that's kind of cool.
That's cool.
But it might not be televised, but they'll be able to see it. People will be able to see it at the game. And I'm not going to be able to be there either, but down in Springfield, Massachusetts, we're going to have a former guest of ours. She's going to beat the crap out of another girl with the same name. Same first name, not the same last name. But Shelly Vincent, 26-2, fighting Shelly Barnett, who was 5-5-2. And lost 5 out of her last 6. So this is obviously a tune-up bout for Shelly Vincent, who just had a really powerful story. She was on our show years ago, but it's definitely a candidate for a reconnection. She's got to fight. I know she hasn't really stopped fighting, but fighting in Massachusetts. Before that, she had 3 straight unanimous decision wins, and last one was in Springfield, but before that was in Rhode Island. She's from Rhode Island, I believe. And had that big fight with Heather Hardy back in 2018, both former guests of ours, and that was the last time she lost, a unanimous decision loss for a vacant WBO title. And Heather Hardy, that's a rematch too. She fought her back in 2016 as well. It was a majority decision loss. So those are only 2 losses of her entire career. She's 26 and Heather Hardy. Getting number 27 this weekend, I believe. Then we got Brandon Figueroa and Stephen Fulton in our first of multiple Somebody's O's Got to Go fights of the week. Brandon 22-0-1, Fulton 19-0, and this one's for the WBC World Super Bantamweight title and the WBO World Super Bantamweight title. Out in Las Vegas, going to be on Showtime on Saturday night. Rais Alim in the main event. He is also undefeated, 18-0. Fighting Eduardo Baez, who is 20-1. None of them have lost any fights in their last 6. So that ought to be a good show at Super Bantamweight as well. And then Gary Antonio Russell at Bantamweight. He is also 18-0. Fighting Alexandro Santiago, 24-2-5. And no losses in their last 6 either. Though Russell had won no contest. And then we go to super lightweights. Rock Dodler. I swore we had another Rock Dodler last week. The week before, I don't know. No, maybe it was the one where you just, I think it was last week, yeah, when Tom and I were on solo. Rock Dodler Myrtle this time. He is undefeated at 17-0, fighting Kevin Johnson, who's 9-2. I don't know where this guy's from, but that must be a thing, because I've definitely seen that before. Anyway, so I don't know anything about those guys, but Super Bantamweights, Aaron Almeida, 25-2, fighting Angel Antonio Contreras, who is 12-4-2. So if we don't find a Jesus fight of the week, that's our Angel fight of the week. And then the whole other card at the other side of the country at Madison Square Garden in New York, we have Teofimo Lopez and George Kambosos Jr. in the other Somebody's Always Got to Go fight at lightweight. This one's for 3 titles too. The zone. World Boxing Association Super World Lightweight title and International Boxing Federation World Lightweight title and the WBO World Lightweight title. Then we got the ones. 15-1 Azinga Fusile at Super Featherweight fighting Kenichi Ogawa, who's 25-1-1. And the draw and a no contest. Last 6 fights for Ogawa, and the loss was in the last 6 fights for Fusile, so probably going to be a Ogawa walk away there, I would say. Anyway, featherweights, Raymond Ford, 9-0-1, fighting Felix Caraballo, who is 13-3-2 for the WBA Continental Featherweight title. And we have a Philadelphia Somebody's Always Got to Go from the 2300 arena. Paul Kroll, 8-0, fighting Mark Dawson, who's 9-0-1.
Should be interesting. I good friend. I used to work with the guy, and I haven't talked to him in about a good year. But he would also talk about Paul Kroll's a guy, had some bad luck, and he's rebounded and he's doing pretty well. I know he struggled in one of his dates, but still doing pretty well. And now, like I said, we got Somebody's Always Got to Go in South Philly.
And we do have one single Jesus fight on Saturday. It's the only one in the entire world listed on BoxRec. Hard to believe. We have a Jesus supply chain shortage, I guess. Super featherweights. Jesus Adrian Denef. This is in Argentina. He's 8-7-2, so he's got a tough road to hoe here. He needs a miracle, but maybe not. His opponent's not too talented either. Javier Vasquez Cabrera. He is 8-10. With 4 of his losses coming in his last 6. 8-10. And Jesus has won 1 out of his last 6. So, yeah. Second fight in on the card. So, not much to be expected there as far as big time action. Brock Dodler Myrtle. Check out this picture.
I'll tell you, man. Rick, did you see any of my photos from the fight last week?
No, I did not.
Yeah, and that new Philadelphia Live Casino just opened about a year ago down at South Philly, right next to the Phillies ballpark. I was going to try to before a game this year, but I get pulled in so many different directions when I'm down there. But I saw they were having a live fight card, and Sonny Conto out of my main event. So I was like, hey, man, well, my dad was away, but I some friends, my deal, let's hit. Man, there ain't a bad seat in that house. It was like all floor seating. The ballroom sits about 12 to 1,400. It was sold out. Crowd, electric, and about each side had about 8 to 10 rows. The only thing that sucked is we were right. You wanted to get out, like you had to walk. You could pass 20 people one way. But good show. The kid that Tony fought came to fight. He looked a little flabby. He was about 257. He had a good God, but he knew how to fight. He was, he could punches, he could jab, he could move a little bit. Gave some fits over the first 2 rounds. And he finally caught him in the third, buckled him on the left hook and dropped him with a right, and they stopped it. But it was a good time. Simon Barr, the very first guest I ever booked on our show, and we our car, and there was Sonny with his dad, and so he stopped, did photos with us, and bullshitted about some of the guys we know out of Iron Anderson Gym. Because I said something like, "Hey, Sonny, how's the training going?" Well, it's like I keep to myself because there's some guys there that don't really like me. Being that I'm kind of a white kid, Italian. I don't really fit it. And I said, "Hey," "Sonny, broke that color back gym 27 years ago." I said, I was the first white Italian there, so you're just footsteps.
Well, here's an interesting setup. If we didn't have enough boxing-related sports, we now apparently have another one. This is actually on the BoxRec page, which is troubling because this is the first I've ever heard of it. But apparently they're doing this thing called Triad Combat League. Have you guys heard about this?
I have not.
This is fucking insane. Okay, Saturday, fighters will compete in a triangular ring with a unique set of rules that will level the playing field between boxers and MMA fighters. Triad Combat's rules specify that fighters can only punch and not throw kicks or elbows or execute takedowns. But unlike boxing, clinching and striking from the clinch is allowed. All punches from all positions and angles which land on legal targets are allowed in Triad Combat. This includes, but is not limited to, jabs, crosses, hooks, straights, uppercuts, bolo punches, back fists, and hammer fists. All the spinning punches which land on legal targets are allowed. All strikes involving kicks, knees, elbows, forearms, shoulders, and head are legal. Weird. But for such a unique and crazy sport, you would not think it would be attracting this kind of talent. But here is the lineup for the first inaugural event in Arlington, Texas. It's going to be on Fight Network, FITE. Heavyweights, Kubrat Pulev, 28-2, fighting Frank Mir, who is 0-1 in boxing, technically. They're using their boxing records, of course. Alexander Flores, also at heavyweight, 18-3, fighting Matt Mitrione, who will be making his debut. Brian Vera, 28-17, fighting Derek Campos, who will be making his debut. And then Michael Seals at light heavyweight, 25-3, fighting Mike Perry, who I thought was going to go to bare knuckle, but I guess he's making a stop in this first. I don't even see what they're using for gloves either, if they're using gloves. Also, light heavyweight Scott Sigmund, 35-15-1, fighting Albert Tumanov, who's making his debut. Welterweights Harry Gigliotti, 8-3, fighting Jacob Thrall, who's 2-0-1. And Angelina Hofschneider, 0-4, fighting Alexa Kulp, who is making her debut. But yeah, that's just a weird little freak show that I just don't know how it's going to turn out. But I guess we're going to find out. Another rivalry developing. Let's Go Champ, Shannon Briggs. Looks like he's going to have a boxing match with none other than Rampage Jackson, who has not looked particularly good the last few times I've seen him. But Shannon the Cannon always looks good. Whether that's because of all the steroids he's taken or not, we don't know. But he has been popped for steroids in recent years when he has looked that good, so I don't know what he's doing other than that. But yeah, we'll see if that happens. What else we got? I got a couple other stories chalked up here somewhere. Alright, we talked about Top Rank has signed my boy Richard Torres, who I told you, Tony, reminded me a lot of, like, if they combined me and you from our college days. That's what he would look like. But, yeah, did great in the Olympics. He ended up going up against a guy who was really, like, at a professional level. Should never even been fighting in the Olympics, but he ended up getting the silver medal and called his father bawling and apologizing for losing. And, you know, nothing to be ashamed of at all. So he kind of had to be talked out of feeling bad about it. Silver is nothing to sneeze at, especially in those circumstances. Anyway, there was another fighter too. I'm just waiting for this to stop freezing on me. What else? What else am I forgetting? Let's see. Oh. Kevin Lee in trouble for some kind of sleep disorder drug. Something like that. Or Adderall or something like ADHD drug. So he's getting a suspension. And then another story, Thomas Dulorme had a fight a couple weeks ago. We were talking about big knockout. He has written a letter to the athletic commission asking for it to be a no contest because he says he was hit in the back of the head. Which I could see, you know, and he does have supposedly some pictures of some bruising there, but I don't know.
Photos. Also it's called Fight. And here's basically what I saw. Thomas Delorme was getting hit from the very start. And you can tell he took a few pretty good shots. I mean, the fight only went a minute plus. So he took a few good shots, and then when Boots went to throw that right hand, he threw like a chopping style right hand, and Delorme was ducking down, and he kind of turned his head. It was by no means intentional. It did not look intentional, and the punch landed. Delorme went down. He did not recover. He got up. 3 punches later, he was down again, and this time he did not get up. You know, if you watch fights, and we all have, you know, there's things called intentional fouls, and there are things called unintentional fouls. So it's like, if you look at the fights like between Andrew and Big Bow, Galata's low blows were to the point where it's like, okay, he maybe was not intending to throw them low, but he unintentionally fouled, 8, 9, 10 times, to the point where it's like, yeah, you don't mean to, but guess what? You're still breaking the rules. Like intentional fouls where, like, two guys are fighting, bell rings, ding, and then the guy clocks the other guy about a 3-second bell, knocks them out. Well, that's an intentional foul, immediate disqualification. So if you go back and you look at that knockout and haven't seen it, I implore that you pull it up on YouTube. You would see if there was a foul, it was partially Delorme's fault, and second of all, it was by no means intentional. So, okay, here you want to end it real. You want to end it real quick. And they say, you know what? We're not going to change it to a no contest, but we'll give you an immediate rematch and see what he says. They're like, yeah, I think I'll pass on that one.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he wants to be in the same building with Boots again.
No. Yeah, that was a tough fight for him, but he's trying to get it thrown out as if it had never happened. But we'll see.
Well, Rich, I'll tell you one, and I probably have the video somewhere. When I was a sophomore at Lockheed, starting to get a little bit more skilled as a fighter. I wasn't as rough. Well, I was always rough and tumble, but learned how to box a little bit better. And I go in the fight at Penn State against a kid from Penn State, and the bell rings for round 1, and I came out in like a smoking Joe Frazier. So I'm bobbing and weaving. I weave under a right hand, or weave under a left hand, and I throw a right hand over the top, and I'm tangled up. Because the kid I was fighting was real awkward, and he would almost palm slap you with his hand. So he would raise his hands up, and he'd kind of come down with the palm of his hand on you. The kid did not know how to box, but he was awkward. So I land the right hand, our legs tangle up, he goes down. They don't call him out. Okay, fine, even though I clearly hit him. Then he gets up, he goes to throw these wild swinging shots. I got the bobbing and weaving again. The referee warned me. I said, this kid's not even landing with the palm, his gloved fist. He's striking me with his palm, which is not a punch. They warned me for saying ducking too low. So now, I'm now getting off my game. He starts calling me a couple. They give me an 8 count. So now I'm way off my game. And there was a fight where it was like I saw Dr. Cox coming into the ring after the first round. I almost walked in the corner because I knew he was pissed. So then they finally had to calm me down a little bit, and we're fighting. Now I'm hitting him in the body. This kid's running out of gas. I'm all over him. And I get him in the corner, and I throw a right hand. He completely turns his back on me, and I hit him in the head. He buckles. He goes down to a knee. They don't call a knockdown. They point me to the corner. They give him, they check. They warn him for turning his back. Fight continues. I hit him a few more times. Fight ends. I get the decision. Well and all good. So I get a copy of the Penn State paper, and you would have thought it was a different fight. I think the kid's name was Billy Sansoni. They're like, nominated from the start. He scored a 8 count in the first round, which technically he did, and he was having his way until Pennicott illegally, put in the word illegally, elbowed him in the back of the head. Mm-hmm. Well, first of all, there was no elbow landed. It was a punch, and it was because he attacked. Sansoni courageously continued through blurred vision, and then was curiously awarded a decision. I was so mad about that, I actually requested a meeting with the journalist. And it wouldn't have been, they said, no, we can't let this happen because you're a hothead and we know it's going to happen. Mm-hmm. And that's the last thing we need is a boxer beating up a girl.
Unreal.
But like I said, that was the same thing. The foul happened because he turned his back in mid-punch. Same thing with Delorme. Delorme basically and turned his head. You can't stop a punch when it's already been thrown. I mean, you could take some mustard off it, you can, but it's not your fault the guy turned his back.
Right. By the way, Top Rank also signed Keyshawn Davis, lightweight, and he's going to be making his debut December 11th. Richard Torres, the heavyweight, will be making his debut at heavyweight sometime next year, 2022. And I saved the best story for last. I know you guys are going to love this one. And it's, it's one of those areas where politics crosses over to the combat sports world. Although it's not necessarily just politics, it's also healthcare. And this is a story about a pro MMA fighter arrested for allegedly stabbing and killing his doctor after a COVID-19 vaccine argument.
Jesus Christ.
Guam. This happened in Guam. Akmal Koziev, he's just a 3-1 pro fighter, MMA guy, was arrested November 7th by the Guam Police Department after allegedly stabbing and killing a doctor during a COVID-19 dispute, according to multiple reports from local news outlets. Unreal. 27-year-old guy faces charges of first-degree felony aggravated murder with a deadly weapon and second-degree aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. Bail set at $1 million. According to a witness, Koziev and Dr. Maran Rabadi, a radiologist at Guam Memorial Hospital, engaged in an altercation at an apartment complex after a heated debate over the COVID-19 vaccine. The witness said the altercation got physical when Koziev choked Rabadi unconscious and stabbed him in the throat with an animal bone from the meal the two had shared. Sounds like a fucking movie.
Woo!
Koziev allegedly then grabbed a knife and stabbed the doctor again. Police responded to the scene where they reportedly found Rabadi face down in a pool of his own blood. "Sir, it's me. It's me. I killed him," Koziev reportedly told police. Another fighter, veteran MMA fighter J.J. Ambrose, competed for Bellator among other promotions. He used to employ this guy Koziev at Steel Athletics and said he was not surprised to hear about the violent altercation. Rabadi, like Koziev, trained for years at the gym. "He was such a great person up until he wasn't," Ambrose told Quam. "We did everything we possibly could to warn people that AK wasn't AK anymore." It's very hard because I know when you're friends with two people and those two people are on the outs, you don't want to take sides. You want to ride in the middle. But in this case, AK seriously needed help, and that was the problem. The people were not trying to take sides, and he seriously needed help this whole time. In a statement to Pacific Daily News, Guam Memorial Hospital praised Rabadi for his dedication and skills as a physician. But yeah, that's one of the crazy stories of the new normal we're dealing with here now. Stabbed him. That was in a movie, right? You guys know what movie I'm talking about? Where he stabbed the guy with the steak? T-bone steak?
No.
I'm trying to think of the guy's name. He's in a lot of movies, but Jamie Foxx was in it. He was like a prosecutor. And the prisoner was like this guy that was really crafty, and he was representing himself, and they were trying to keep him locked up, and he was doing all this shit from behind bars. And so he bribed the guard somehow to give him a steak, a T-bone steak, and he cut the steak down to the bone, and then he stabbed his cellmate with the bone like 100 times. It was like ridiculous. Just used it like friggin' like brass knuckles. Unreal. So anyway, that's what that story is. It's the true life version of it. I don't know if we might have got the idea from watching the movie. I wouldn't be surprised. But yeah, that's a pretty heated argument when you're just sitting there having dinner and you just stab a guy with a fucking animal bone. Oh, ridiculous. But anyway, I guess he didn't want the vaccine. And the doctor was probably trying to argue that it was good for him. Anyway. So that's our MMA bad boy of the week, I guess. And that's our last story that I
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah. Everybody's like, worried about what people might say on Facebook if you say the wrong thing about the vaccine. I think most of those people who get in these little arguments on Facebook would be pretty floored hearing that one. That's as bad as it gets when you fight to the death over a fucking vaccine argument. And that guy's going to be spending life in jail probably over that. So he's going to be having to learn how to use those shivs.
I would bet on that.
He might have to use that shiv technique again. They're going to keep all the animal bones away from him. All right, guys.
Yeah, right.
Speaking of animal bones, happy Thanksgiving in advance. Enjoy the holiday. Don't eat too much.
Yeah, happy Thanksgiving. All right, guys. Have a safe one. I start the tree set up tomorrow, and then 15 hours on Black Friday, which is always fun to me.
Awesome. Well, I fulfilled a promise to my late father with my Christmas tree this year that I put out front. Because there's this one tree, this pine tree, that blocks the view pretty much of the little downtown area that I can see from my house on a really big hill. So apparently my girlfriend got a medium, and the medium was going through this whole thing, and she said that my father came through and told her that something about one last Christmas. And so that clicked right immediately to me, because when he was alive, I used to always be like, Dad, we should cut that tree down. And he'd always be like, no, it's a nice Christmas tree. We ought to use it one last Christmas. So it was like confirmation for me that shit is real, that there's some genuine article to that whole ability that people have, which I always believed. But, that was the number one thing that came through. So I was going to do it last year, just never got around to it. But this year, I made sure to dig the hole a couple days before it got really cold. Dug a nice big hole right out front, and I cut the tree down a couple days ago, put it up. I haven't decorated it yet, but it's all propped up in the front of the house now. It looks like it was always there. And that's going to be our one last Christmas tree for the view's sake. And yeah, maybe we'll see a miracle. Maybe it'll actually root up into the ground somehow.
Yeah.
That'll be a transplant technique I've never been successful at before, but hey, stranger things have happened. So there you have it. Until next week, I guess that's all for us. And enjoy the fights, and don't get too drunk and stupid.
All right, guys.
Travel
I'm trying
safe.
not to. I got it.
All right.
See you guys. Have a good holiday.
All right.
All right.
Thanks for stopping by.